that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation.
Something I wasn't going to talk about and really get into was the Epstein files, but this subject is too polarizing. This scandal is too massive for me to remain silent. What we're seeing right now just isn't a scandal. It's a reflection of how the systems we inherited actually operate. The massive controversy surrounding the polarizing Epstein files forces us to confront a long-standing question in this nation. A question that this nation and the people in it have neglected to answer for 250 years. Are the wealthy and powerful ever truly held accountable? Because over the years, this case has implicated a plethora of individuals who have extraordinary influence, including politicians, billionaires, and even celebrities. Constant and consistent proximity to power has always protected them from real consequences. And while the public simply argues about politics and personalities, the victims continue to be forgotten and pushed down, and they're often forgotten. Justice for the victims not only has been drastically delayed, but it is being fragmented and diluted. The Department of Justice even recently came out with a statement saying they would miss the congressionally mandated deadline to release the Epstein files. And the reason, they cited a discovery of a massive volume of material that would simply take a massive amount of time to properly sift through and go through, which is code for redaction. On paper, that might sound reasonable to some, but historically, this is when the concern truly starts. Why do they always need more time? A bigger issue comes when people in power are asked to investigate themselves, is when the situation never comes out pure. The answers never come out straight, as we see redaction after redaction. They are scrubbing these files to protect themselves without caring less about the victims and the people truly affected. This is no longer a left versus right issue. This is no longer about party loyalty, silly party loyalty. This has always been about the top versus the bottom, the wealthy versus the working class, the 1% versus the average human being. Throughout history, wealth and power has bought something that the rest of us do not have the luxury of buying. That is time, protection, and distance from consequences. The working class will never get a few more weeks for accountability. The average person, like me, like the rest of us, will never get a few more weeks to scrub something to protect our image, to protect our name. Yet they get weeks and months to do it. The Epstein case has been going on for years, and they're still delaying the process. We don't get ambiguity. We get consequences, and we get them fast, and they're permanent. And this is why this moment matters. This is why I decided to weigh in. I didn't just want to talk about the files. I want to talk about the bigger thing that's going on here. Delays in justice like this do not exist in isolation. They do not exist in a vacuum. It's a pattern. When justice becomes slow, selective, opaque even, it stops being justice. When it's biased and sifted through, it becomes management. Damage control. Ultimately, they are trying to protect their wealth and their reputation with no regard for the damage that has been done to the victim. The victims in this case are not abstract. They're not far from home. These are people's children, people's family members. Somebody's loved ones were affected, and they're just playing games trying to figure out who's not going to go down for the fall. And every delay sends a very strong message to the people. They are trying to negotiate closure for the victims. They are playing in our faces, clear as day. These people want to avoid consequences at all costs. When powerful names begin to get involved, a massive flaw in the American society and our system begins to show. Our justice system, the American justice system, bends very easily to those with wealth and those with power. while us stuck at the bottom have a very rigid and tight existence. And it really begins to feel like rules for thee and not for me. And as citizens, we cannot ignore what this represents, because if accountability can be stalled at this level, it can be stalled again and again. Like I said earlier in the video, I didn't plan to originally speak on this case, but the repeated mishandling of a case of this magnitude is unacceptable. And it shouldn't be acceptable by the people of this nation, and it dang sure shouldn't be acceptable by the leaders in this nation. The delays, the lack of transparency, they're complicit. They do not care. There is no empathy, there is no emotion behind what these people have done to these victims. My message for this video is simple. Accountability must be universal. Elected officials, wealthy individuals must be held to the same standard as everyone else. Not eventually, not selectively, but fully. From now on out, I will continue to follow this story as it keeps developing, because moments like this define moral boundaries of an entire nation. This is much bigger now, and the mishandling, the chronic mishandling by this administration and the elected officials should not be tolerated. We owe it to the victims. We owe it to the future generations of this nation. We owe it to ourselves. We must demand better. God bless.